Hi, this video is about the AI agent nonsense coming out of the tech industry right now. AI agents are going to be incredibly powerful, but there's a huge amount of misunderstanding, even at the highest levels of where they're going to go. And I'm going to make my case in this video of why you should trust me, and also give specific examples of AI agents that are actually built correctly. So we have the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, and the CEO of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, but they're not the only people talking about AI agents in the way. There's a lot of groupthink going on, and I'm going to show you why it's wrong and the correct way to build AI agents. I have a lot of real-world experience of building practical AI-powered software solutions, and I've had an aggressive focus on this basically since ChatGPT came out 2 years ago, and this is a very different perspective than what the vast majority of companies out there, and not just these two people and companies that we're going to show off in this video. Also, make sure you stay till the end, because I'm going to show you the start of a real world project of building an AI agent, and I think that will make it very clear as to why what Microsoft has here and the way that Jensen Huang talks about AI agents is just giga wrong. And I'll show you my starting mapped out process, and you can follow along as I continue to build that out and test the variety of different features that are going to be in that AI agent. All right, so let's see Microsoft's crappy agents.
Let's say you wanted to build a field service agent that you want to interface into Copilot. All you got to do is give it a system prompt, tell it that, hey, I want you to be a field service agent, point it to a SharePoint site where there's a bunch of documents related to field service, add to it even additional data sources. In this case, their Dynamics as the system of record for field service, and you have an output, which is essentially a field service agent, which now you can talk to and have a conversation with, just like you would with any other regular Copilot conversation, right? So that simplicity, it's kind of like back in the day, we just created an Excel spreadsheet. It's no more mystical than that. Just like how you could create an Excel spreadsheet that was a forecast, you can now create AI agents using a low-code, no-code tool like Copilot Studio, put it into Copilot. You can even think of these as the new form of applications.
So this is a tiny speck of what AI agents can do, what they are building here. In fact, this is very, very similar to the GPTs that ChatGPT released about a year ago that have been very underwhelming. And that is because it's like an extension on that. It's like a little bit better than that, but definitely not a whole world better. There is some benefit to Microsoft being integrated into the work processes and it having essentially access to data and access to different usage and software pieces much more conveniently. But other than that, it's basically the same thing. You give it a little bit of data, you give it a system prompt, and boom, you have an AI agent. To me, these are very crappy AI agents. Actually, let me rephrase that. In most scenarios, these are crappy AI agents. There are some cool things you can do with this, which to me shows that there's just so much room to work. There's so much value that AI can actually provide that they're even just scratching the surface seems like a lot. And maybe to a lot of people, maybe this is why people think, oh, this is great, this is where we're going, because they think that this is enough, that wow, this is so much value that we can add. And I'll put a link to the full video in here in the description, where they show a little bit more of a specific use case that actually is useful. But there's so much more that can be done when you build it much better and much more optimally. Okay, so now let's jump to Jensen, where the way that he talks about it shows that he does not understand what agents will be. But this is a very common misconception, and this is what a lot of the big model companies, and I would consider him to be the top supplier of the big model companies. So they're incentivized to push what I'd consider an LLM-centric viewpoint. So let's see what it has to say, and I'll comment on it in a second.
A time now where the large language models and the fundamental AI capabilities have reached a level of capabilities we're able to now create what is called agents. Large language models that understand the data that, of course, is being presented.
Notice this, and this trend is going to continue. He is saying an agent is an LLM, and an LLM is an agent, or more like one is a subset of the other, which is wholly incorrect, and I'll make my case for that here in a minute. But let's let him continue.
It could be streaming data, it could be video data, language model data, it could be data of all kinds. The first stage is perception. The second is reasoning about, given its observations, what is the mission and what is the task it has to perform. In order to perform that task, the agent would break down that task into steps of other tasks. And it would reason about what it would take, and it would connect with other AI models. Some of them are good at, for example, understanding.
So a lot of what he's saying is actually correct. It's that you heard it again. He's saying it connects to other AI models. He's using the term essentially agent almost interchangeably with the AI models. So to be clear, an AI agent is not an AI model, and a large language model by itself cannot be an AI agent, at least as the technology currently stands. Now, maybe that's going to change in the future. I think OpenAI says something different. I wholly disagree, and I think they're barking up the wrong tree with the current technology. But so I want to point out that there's some of the stuff that he's saying is generally correct. But again, he used the AI model is interchangeably from the AI agent. So let's move on.
PDF. Maybe it's a model that understands how to generate images. Maybe it's a model that...
Maybe it's a model. Maybe it's a model. Like, again, he's using model and AI agent interchangeably as if the model is the agent and the agent is the model.
Is able to retrieve information, AI semantic data from a proprietary database. So each one of these large language models are connected to the central reasoning large language model we call agent. And so these agents are able to perform all kinds of tasks. Some of them are maybe marketing agents, some of them are customer service agents, some of them are chip design agents. Nvidia has chip design agents all over the company.
This security guy's kind of weird. He's like in the shot a lot. I feel like he's like crowding up on him. I thought that was kind of funny.
Helping us design chips. Maybe they're software engineering agents. Maybe they're able to do marketing campaigns, supply chain management. And so we're going to have agents that are helping our employees become super employees. These agents, or agentic AI models.
There we go. He called them agentic AI models. The models, the LLMs, are not agentic. It is the process, the software that you put them in that makes them, and I really don't even like the word agentic, but that makes them act like agents. But there's more beyond agents, and I'm going to cover that in a second, that is meaningful here. That's just a huge thing that everybody's missing.
All of our employees to supercharge them, make them more productive. Now, when you think about these agents, it's really the way you would bring these agents into your company is not unlike the way you would onboard someone who's a new employee. You have to give them training curriculum. You have to fine-tune them, teach them how to use, how to perform the skills, and understand the vocabulary of your company. You evaluate them, and so there are evaluation systems. And you might guardrail them. If you're an accounting agent, don't do marketing.
This is also false, or at least it's largely false. These AI agents, when properly built, will not be trained like humans. This actually reminds me of a potential client I was talking to, where she was like, hey, we're just going to give you a manual and you can train on that. And I was like, actually, there's this other data set you have that would be much more useful to us using AI. And she's like, no, you should do it on the you should be able to do it just by giving the AI the training manual. And I was like, that's not how AI works. Okay, AI and humans are different. At least currently, as the LLMs are spec'd out, you do not just onboard them like employees. There are going to be very different processes, and it's going to require software engineering to do this right. That's part of why Microsoft's Copilot, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to make like this whole no-code AI revolution and power all these different things, and there's going to be some good uses for that. But it just scratches the surface of what can be done with AI. Additionally, there's so much more than AI agents out there. The implications here are that the AI agents are the be-all, end-all of where AI is going. You know, they talk about agent swarm, they talk about the AI agents communicating, and they talk about basically the AI agent solves all the problems. And really, this is an extension of the chatbot focus. Basically, the whole industry and the whole world almost thinks about AI from a chatbot perspective, and that makes sense because of that's how they interact with it. And then AI agents are essentially an extension on chatbots. It's essentially a chatbot that does a bit more. But there are a lot of new capabilities that have nothing to do with chat, that are not AI agents. For example, we're building a solution for clients that involves extracting data from unstructured documents. There's no AI agent in there. There's no chat. It's just using a large language models to do essentially data processing. And there's a whole bunch of cool stuff you can do with data processing now with AI that again has nothing to do with chat. So this is a huge misconception, and I think that these are going to prove to be pretty silly. And also just keep in mind, Microsoft, Nvidia, OpenAI, Google, they all have a vested interest in making the LLMs be more than they are. But also we're in a new paradigm, so I don't blame them, and I don't think like Jensen or Satya are actually out there building and coding real world practical AI solutions like me and my team are. And there's a lot of groupthink here. I think that basically what comes out of Sam Altman's and OpenAI's mouths, collective mouths, becomes what people expect, because they made a huge bet that scaling up would dramatically improve large language models, and they were right. And therefore, by logic, they're right about everything. I think that is incorrect. I think that they deserve a crap ton of credit for getting us to where we're at. But I've seen enough come out of their messaging to know that I don't think that they know where the next things are. I don't think they know how to build AI agents. I think they're doing it the same way, and which is why they're going to be extremely limited. So let me show you what I mean. So this is an example. Let me zoom in of like what essentially the Microsoft agents are. How a lot of people are thinking about AI agents, and this is basically how almost everybody builds AI agents. You basically have a large language model at the very center. It's so critical. It's such a huge part of the system that people talk about the large language model interchangeably with the AI agent. You build the AI agent by basically having the right training data. You train, you fine tune. You give it the right system message. You saw that in the Microsoft thing. You give it some database of information that's usually RAG, and that's what Microsoft showed us. And then you have tools, which Microsoft didn't show in that video, but I think they have some other kind of tool-ish type thing. So this is essentially the large language model having direct access to classic software as coding. That's essentially what a tool is. Okay, my argument is this is backwards. You actually want the classic software to use the LLMs as tools, and what you get is a much more robust, a much wider range of capabilities, a much more reliable process. That's a huge thing. When you put the LLM at the center, it's very unreliable, and reliability is huge for creating real world solutions. So let's go into. I showed this in another video, and this is just actually one of the simpler examples of building an AI agent that shows you can't put the LLM at the center. And then I'm going to go to the next one, which is the working project, the part 2 of building essentially a Twitter digital entity. And I'm going to show you that in a second. I think that's going to be really fun. And it's even more complicated than this. I don't have the flow diagram for it, but I have a few notes here that will help explain it a bit further for those of you who are curious and would like to see how to actually build that. So if you come in here, you have a YouTube agent where there's a request. You can't just do this. You have to parse it, because sometimes the request is to summarize, and sometimes it's to extract data. And these are two different processes that require two different prompts and potentially two different models. Maybe the same model, but definitely two different prompts that and that act differently. Okay, how would you do that with a single model? Maybe I think that the general solution would be like, well, let's train it better. Let's train it to handle both scenarios. It's very inefficient. And what you do is when you're training it to handle two scenarios, it doesn't handle either one very well. And when there's actually 3 scenarios in this example, and there's actually more than that. When you there's multiple YouTube videos, there's multiple requests in the input, and then there's the YouTube be able to actually just input a whole YouTube channel and ask about that. So there's multiple forks in the process that let's say about 5, roughly, maybe 5 to 7, let's say 10. Nice round number 10. Okay. If you train a model to do one particular thing, that will work pretty well. You train it to do 2 things, that probably will work well depending on the divergence of those things. As you start to add up more and more things, you start to degrade the model's reliability and capabilities for each of those initial things. You cannot realistically train this model to do 10 different things all really well. That's not how the technology works right now. You play whack-a-mole. The more you steer it in one direction, the more you're steering it away from another direction. Okay, this is how the technology works. And the more solutions as you train it to do 3 things, 4 things, 5 things, 6 things, now you're starting to degrade the original things. So the solution for that, much faster, much less expensive, much more reliable, and opening up a lot more capabilities, is to put it within a software system where you use an LLM here. And this one's actually just more like a triage call. So this is just like, are they asking for a summarization, or are they asking for data extract, or other? I mean, it could be that simple. I'm not saying that's exactly what it would be, but basically that's, I think in our case, when we built this for a software we had about 6 months ago, it was basically like customer support as well was one of the options. So I think there are 4 or 5 different options. So if it is summarization, it goes to an LLM call that might actually chunk things, but it might not. It depends on the size. And chunking something is non-trivial in terms of like how big are the chunks? Where do you draw the line for the chunks? Is there an overlap? These are all nuances to properly chunking things. So in different types of agents, you want to chunk differently. There's another reason why you can't just give it to the model. Also, what about, if you're doing a YouTube channel and there's like 1,000 videos, most models right now won't fit in the context window, nor should you do that. Even if it does fit in the context window, that doesn't mean that is the proper way to go. That doesn't mean you're going to get the high quality results. And then if it's yes here, if it's no here. So we're doing 2 different things. Tell me how you would solve this with one LLM. I don't think you can. Please put in the comments if you think I'm wrong and let me know. And again, there's another fork here because there's a different type of data extraction being asked. We found out as we started to explore that there's kind of 2 different processes that needed to be decided between. Where in one case you could do a RAG and you could just find the most relevant things. It was very easy. But then there were some requests that required essentially crawling the whole YouTube transcript. And then again, an LLM call, etc., to the final output. So you have 5 different LLM calls with 5 different prompts and potentially 5 different LLMs. This is going to be far more reliable than this. And it opens up the door to add in these much more reliably. If you build it this way, as you try to add more tools, you try to add more functionality, it will get worse. Now, I think some people might say, well, we'll just build, each one of these is an agent. Why? You're just adding steps. Like, you're like, oh, okay, well, let's each one of these is a little bit individual agent. No, it's software. You're adding steps, you're adding layers of complexity, that's unnecessary by calling it agents and by training each individual step to be, we want an LLM, we want a triage agent, we want a summarization agent, we want a RAG or a full extract. Just make it an LLM call. That's just maybe a couple lines of code. You don't need to make this an AI agents. And in fact, these agent swarm ideas are extremely inefficient. There was another example somebody was given, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was doing this with multiple AI agents, and he ended up calling LLMs, I think he had with an input, he had 5 separate calls when it could have been solved with 2. Okay, and because he was using the AI agents when it was unnecessary. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit into this. I'll call it a project crazy interesting, because the idea here is to create digital entities. I guess AI agents. Again, I don't quite like that term. I think it's more of a digital entity, an AI entity that is on Twitter, or multiple entities to test, to put up on Twitter, to see what can happen, see if we can get a following, and go from there. And so this is even more complex than the Twitter agent. There's a lot more going on here, and this is still just scratching the surface of what can be done. So I had to kind of map out the inputs. So it's got to read Twitter essentially, and maybe read other sources like search. I think that's useful. We've got to have outputs like writing a post, writing comments, and writing PMs. We got to figure out how to schedule the activity, reading time and to writing time. I'm thinking we trigger it once every 90 minutes, kind of randomly, and not always writing on all 3 different paths every time. So an interesting thing about Twitter API, there's a $200 a month level, but it only gets you a few parts of the data. In order to get like the full access, it's like $5,000 a month, which I didn't want to pay. Hopefully you can understand that. So actually that opens up the door for me to use Cloud computer usage. So I'm going to be testing Cloud computer usage to fill in some of those gaps with the Twitter agent essentially to get it to have the full capabilities to do what it needs to do, to be very active on Twitter and to have its own kind of personality. And then the idea here is to create multiple mind amalgams. And this is where we essentially train the model on a variety of different data sources with a recipe in mind. So we have different ingredients, and so we fine-tune the open source models. We're working on cloud GPUs. I did try some run pod stuff. They have some quick and easy to set up an open source model. I saw a video that had the bloke on there, but RunPod's support said, oh, he hasn't responded in a year, so they gave a few examples. We're actually using TensorDoc instead. I have a machine learning engineer at the company that's kind of making sure we're setting all that up correctly. And eventually we want to be able to maybe even house this on a local computer, but this is for initial testing. So we got to get some cloud GPUs. We got to set up software in order to call that. And then we got to set up fine tuning of those with ingredients. So for example, some ingredients might be me at YouTube talking about AI engineering. I like what the Palantir CEO has to say. Train on viral, how to do viral content. So the point of this is to actually have the Twitter AI agent to get a following. And so, have it actually try to understand how to make viral posts. And like kind of how to build an audience on Twitter. And here's one of the mind amalgam examples. I guess this is more like a recipe ideas. Carl Sagan plus Bob Ross plus Mr. Rogers. I think that'd be really fun. So that's just an example of one of the different ideas that we can put out there and kind of see what happens. Now it will also it will be uncensored, or at least we'll get as close to uncensored as we can, with the one limitation of like violent or dangerous things, not including that in there, but in terms of cursing or saying things that are a little bit explicit, although you don't really envision these 3 people of being explicit of all the people in the world, but there's going to be some recipes that probably will be somewhat explicit, and that's fine. Planning modules, so this is conditional usage, and again, different prompts and perhaps different LLMs. We have to schedule things. There's strategy and tactics. This is going to be really important for that. It has sort of like a maintenance on the plan, and we're kind of sort of can update itself. It's not quite that simple. I think there will be some overview monitoring of what it decides. So when it gathers data, processes the data, analyzes the data, brainstorms, and then what it decides on things, we're going to have to probably tune that and figure that out, and it's going to be a work in progress. And then it will have long-term memory. This is really important. So it'll remember everything that it says, it'll remember everything that it interacts with, it'll remember every PM that it gets, and it'll be able to use that as a reference point going forward. And there's going to be different buckets of long-term memory and different classes of information, and there's multiple angles to pre-processing, so there's a lot of potential knobs and dials to pull here. And then we'll be tracking the performance. So this is just a quick overview of the part 2 of the project. Over the last week have started setting some of these pieces up and trying to work with Twitter. You can see some of my cursor AI Twitter activity. I'm trying to get it to integrate with the API and running some different tests, but I think sometime by December, I think we'll have 1 to 3 Twitter AI agents up and live for you to see, and hopefully you'll follow along. And if you're still with me, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe for more awesome content so you can follow along with this really interesting project. And then there's another secret project that I'm not sure when we'll introduce it, but I do plan on shooting videos on it when the time is right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.